It's Thursday, January 9th, 2014. I'm Jimmy Principe.
I'm Sydney Foster.
And I'm Trey Comstock. Put in your final orders because this is Tech's Last Call, episode 58. Your last call for Tech News of the Week. Tonight, Jimmy is wearing his connected home. Sydney is leaving Alan Mullally for T-Mobile. And I lose all hope for televisions and humanity. But we start tonight with some programming notes here at Tech's Last Call. So it is the new year, and with the new year come some changes. So a little inside note about how this show happens. It takes about between 5.5 and 6 hours, depending on who you're talking about on this team, to do this show. As such, given where we are, that model is not sustainable. However, this show isn't going anywhere. It has stood for 58 consistent weeks, and it will hopefully stand for many, many more. But we are scaling back what this show is. So instead of doing between 9 and 10 stories every Thursday night into Friday morning, we're going to do 4 or 5 stories. We'll pick the top 4 stories of the week, and then we'll still do a last call because this is still Tech's Last Call. Now, that may sound initially like you'll be getting less of our lovely voices in your ear holes in the near future. However, that's not true. Odds are you will end up with more of us. We are going to be launching a new Monday night show, tentatively called Techies Talking Tech Tonight, or T4.
T4.
And
sounds like an energy drink.
It does kind of sound like that is a great idea for a logo. Maybe I'll run with that. So you'll get T4, hopefully launching in the next couple weeks. We need to sort out logos and designs and sound effects and all that kind of stuff.
A little bit of content.
And a little bit of content ideas. But what T4 will be is a very long, relatively long discussion on one topic that we're interested in. So probably the first episode of T4 will be a much extended discussion of televisions at CES.
Where Trey
we're
hates
interested
on
in
them.
that?
No, that's the point. We're not. But I think we need to I think there needs to be a space where we thoroughly explain why we're not interested. And this is also where a lot more of the segments will get folded in. This is where you'll get your Geeks Anonymous and your space. And all these kind of things. Sydney won't always be on that show. She'll be on sometimes. Steven will appear relatively often. And so it's a chance for us to kind of do something that's a little more freeform, a little less regimented, a little more discussion-based. But you're still going to get your last call for Tech News of the Week every Thursday night. It'll just be a smaller show. So
Friday
it's not
morning in your feeds.
So more like, Tuesday morning in your feeds, or Friday morning in your feeds, or whenever. But this is going to kind of lift some burden off us, kind of focus what this show is, and allow for a space for some more freeform content. So yes, things are changing, but nothing is really going away so much as you'll be getting more of us kind of spread out throughout the week. So
besides, you'll get to hear more of Trey's just rants about things.
Rants.
Due to the Monday show.
On the Monday show, I mean, I'm really excited about the Monday show.
Because usually Monday or Tuesday, where Trey and I kind of discuss what we're going to kind of talk about, and Trey just hates on something for the week, and it's hilarious.
Yeah, the hate theme for this week is CES televisions.
And now you'll get to
which was the hate theme a year ago.
Which tends to be my hate theme every time we're talking about CES. So yes, it is CES Week, International Consumer Electronics Show in Las Vegas, Nevada. And as we are live from the studio, you can probably notice that we are not in Nevada, thank God.
Which means we've slept.
Which means we've slept and eaten, and I've worked on other media projects and things. But we do have a ton of news from CES and a couple stories not from CES to run down. So let's start with our first CES story, and Sydney. What's up with T-Mo?
Oh, T-Mo. So T-Mobile is definitely in the Vegas mindset at CES. They are spending wildly, they are showing off, and they are even getting kicked out of parties this week. Busy week.
Those hooligans.
Yeah, those crazy T-Mo people. So CEO John Laguerre kicked off the week at CES on Monday by getting thrown out of AT&T's developer party.
Yes.
Apparently, a few T-Mobile guys decided they were going to crash the party, allegedly to listen to the musicians who were playing at said party. And Right. And so one of CNET's reporters, Roger Cheng, tweeted a photo of himself with John Laguerre saying, "Oh, LOL, he's crashing the party." It was more eloquent than that, but basically saying, "Hey, look who's here." And very shortly thereafter, he was escorted from
out
the
by
province.
security.
Yes, by security. So, which of course resulted in large amounts of press and, other excitement as well, which was very convenient because the next day, T-Mobile unveiled their Uncarrier 4.0 plan. So of course they were just there for the music. It had nothing to do with free publicity. No. So the new version of Uncarrier, in some of its interesting features, involves T-Mobile paying off the early termination fees of any customers who switch from other carriers, and that's I think up to $350 of early termination fees. So if you decide to leave your current carrier, switch to T-Mobile, they'll basically pay your ransom so that you can switch. They also offer their switching customers a credit of up to $300 for turning in their old phones, which is actually a requirement of the plan. So you give them your phone, they pay you $300 that you then apply to presumably a new phone. At their conference, they also touted their wireless network speeds, talking about their wideband LTE and really emphasizing the fact that while they have a smaller marketing budget than AT&T and Verizon, they really are claiming that they have the fastest speeds out there. So what do we think of T-Mobile's new and exciting offerings? Is this just the hook that they needed to pull people in, or is this just another bad decision made in Vegas?
I looked at that plan and I was thinking, well, I'm tired of paying AT&T what I'm paying them for the most basic, realistic smartphone plan that I could imagine, maybe within $15. So I do for the Lumia 1020, we pay $75 a month, and what that gives me is the least amount of voice minutes that I could get them to let me buy, unlimited text, which is kind of a requirement at this point, and then and then 2 gigs of data, which doesn't actually sound like all that much. Now, if I dropped down to like 300 megabytes of data, I could save $15 a month. But still, I'm paying a terrible amount to AT&T. And so I looked at that and I went, huh.
As a point of reference, I'm currently on T-Mobile with my Nexus 5, and I'm paying $60 a month for unlimited talk and text and 2 gigs of data.
But the problem is you're doing a prepaid account, and I
am doing a prepaid account. And that does not qualify for this.
Right. This only qualifies as postpaid accounts. So what I am considering, assuming T-Mo has the Nokia devices that I want, I would consider leaving AT&T specifically for my Windows phone.
But I'm not sure that they do, though.
Well, they used to not. I don't know now.
I don't know if they got the 1520. I think 1520 was
it's an AT&T exclusive.
AT&T exclusive. 1020 is an AT&T exclusive.
Yeah, that's
the only Lumia phone that T-Mobile has is the 520 and the 620.
520s and 620 are great devices, but those are the low-end devices and not...
Right. They're the entry-level Lumia devices, and they're very good for what they are.
Yeah. But... Oh, no. I mean... Paul Thurrott of Windows Weekly and the Win Super site talks very highly. I mean, those things are part of what's boosting Windows market share simply because of their price relative to their features. But it doesn't solve my problem, because part of why I'm on AT&T consistently is because AT&T has the phones when I want them. It's why I switched to AT&T in the first place in like 2002, because. Then AT&T and Singular were separate companies, and AT&T had the Lumia awesome phone that I wanted, and not Nokia. It was the Nokia one that was the candy bar, and then had the circle keypad and the really big 1.2 megapixel camera. That thing was the hotness. And I get it in green.
Is this the candy bar phone?
This is my candy bar phone.
This is like
it was the Nokia 3000 series. I mean, this thing was cool back in the day. But anyways, I digress. So I'd switch if T-Mobile ever had the phones I actually want that aren't the iPhone.
Well, you know what the answer to that is?
What?
You buy it unlocked. You bring it to T-Mobile.
Yeah, but then I have to
know,
pay
that's a non-argument
$700
for you. I'm aware.
up front, and that's just a non-argument for me. I get it. Like, I get it, makes sense, but I have a lot of things I have to divert funds towards, and set that $700. I understand I save money over time, especially because I would be leaving AT&T's ass. But that just doesn't work for me.
Leaving them in the dust.
I'm just going to leave them in the dust. I mean, I'm going to
Kick
stay.
them to the curb.
Well, no, I'm going to stay in AT&T for my iPhone data because I have grandfathered unlimited, and until they get rid of grandfathered unlimited, I am a loyal AT&T customer.
They're never going to get rid of grandfathered unlimited. They'd lose people in droves.
Well, they'd certainly lose me. I'd go to a better carrier.
Because I know everyone else goes, yeah, but I have an unlimited, grandfathered unlimited plan, so why would I leave?
I mean, it's limited unlimited data in that, like, there are still some things I can't do, like tethering
and they throttle it.
And they throttle only after like 5 gigs though. Like, I have a hard time making them throttle me. So
you have to be in the top 1% of data users.
Yeah.
That's me, by the way. I am the top 1% of data users. I use about 15 gigs of data a month. Prior to switching to T-Mobile.
I use between 3 and 4 on my iPhone. I use less than a gig, but more than 300 meg on my Lumia 1020. So yeah. I'm kind of trapped. So something that got untrapped is China and game consoles. So soon you'll be able to legally buy game consoles in China, and the stock market loves it. This is somewhat more complicated than it sounds. We've talked previously about how China was considering allowing games consoles to be manufactured and sold within the new Shanghai Free Trade Zone. The ban on game consoles was enacted in 2000 because apparently console games specifically, were deemed to jeopardize the mental health of Chinese youth, whereas PC gaming has flourished. Well, the psychiatrist trade is looking up because China has officially announced a lifting of the ban within the free trade zone. This seems to be somewhat limited to me, but maybe I don't understand it. But the stock market are not known for such moderation in their thinking. Nintendo's stock jumped to a 2-year high on the back of this news, and Ubisoft was up over 7% after having crashed like 30% in October when they announced the delay of Watch Dogs. So,
Ubisoft.
My question about this, though, is, given that PC gaming is already so entrenched in China, does this actually make a difference?
I mean, I really don't think so. I think that there is a market for that convenience of having a console connected to your television, but I don't know honestly, I don't know what the numbers look like for PC gaming penetration in China and how big of a market there is for consoles.
Well, it's a big enough market. That's hard to know, right? You look at this and you say, okay, they're used to PC gaming. Copyrights are somewhat lax, so they're used to basically games for free. There's a lot of like World of Warcraft mining, gold mining, and stuff like that. It's hard to know. The projections I've heard the ideas of projections that I've heard talk about the growing middle class in China. And so there's a whole bunch of people with a whole bunch of disposable income, and that could play well for relatively expensive consoles. But these consoles have much heavier DRM than PCs, generally speaking, with more like non-standard stuff that's theoretically harder to crack. What interests me here is partially what this could mean for the like cracked game market.
Don't smile after you say that.
Well, it'd just be interesting to see what they do with it, because the PS2 is thoroughly cracked. You walk down the streets of the 3 or 4, developing nations I've been in the past few years, and it's just streets lined with people selling bootleg DVDs and bootleg PS2 games.
It's because the PS2 is the best-selling console of all time.
Of all time, and sells gangbusters in the developing world still. In fact, they still make FIFA for the PS2 because of how well it sells specifically in the developing world. Particularly Latin America and Africa. Because they
love the PS2. That is such a good console. Can we talk about how awesome of a console the PS2 is, and how it's so awesome that China is getting it?
Device of the year.
If you wanted to list top devices of all time, you'd be hard pressed not to put the PS2 on there.
It's definitely in a list.
just in terms of
top
the impact,
devices.
the level of excitement it had at the time it came out, the way it's been able to sustain, the way it's, it gets right that it's the right level of media functionality that you want. Hey, it's a DVD player too.
Well, and my favorite discussion was which console won the last console war? Was it the Wii? Was it the Xbox 360? Was it the PS3? And someone, I think it was Tom Merritt, said, well, actually, technically, it's the PS2.
No. If you look at just sales within the last generation, so you starting from 2005 to 2013, the top selling console
no,
is
it's
the Wii. It's the Wii, hands down.
But the point is that it's how well does it play when the next generation comes out?
Then the DS
how well
wins.
Does it sell?
Then
right,
it's the DS.
Yes, but
That assumes you're including
PS2.
handhelds.
Yeah, if you're this is the rabbit hole, right? Like, what do you include? When did the previous generation begin? Did it begin with the Xbox 360? Did it begin with the DS?
I'd say 360.
I don't know. It depends where you lump handhelds in, because handhelds seem to be on this. But they do.
That's my solution. But no, I'm just telling you my solution. It's a problem. Yeah. Anyways, we're off on a tangent here.
Yes.
But the point is,
speaking of off on a tangent, Alan Mulally finally cut to the chase.
So Ford CEO Alan Mulally decided to put a tiny puncture in the tire of one of my 2014 tech predictions on Tuesday when he announced that he will be remaining in his current position as CEO of Ford at least through the end of the year. Womp, womp, womp. So this announcement from Mulally put to rest months of speculation that he was a frontrunner to take over for exiting Microsoft CEO Steve Ballmer. I kind
Trey's
of
Ballmering.
that was going to happen. And so for those of you who may have missed our tech predictions episode, I did predict that we're going to be looking at that we will be getting the new CEO for Microsoft will be someone from the outside, with Mulally definitely out of the running. That does reduce my chances of being successful, but oh well. And so, of course, with Mulally definitively out of the way now, our question becomes, who are the new frontrunners? Who are we looking at? What does the list look like right now? And in my opinion, the most important question is, does my prediction still stand a chance?
Well, with the information that we have right now, no, I don't think it does. Damn. But we don't know, because right now the only front runners.
Right now, nobody knows.
Well, right now the only front runners that we know that have been clearly identified as existing is Tony Bates, which he started out with Skype, and so he was an acqui-hire into Microsoft.
Stephen
Elop, formerly of Microsoft, then Nokia, then back to Microsoft, and then Satya Nadella, head of the the server and tools.
Yeah. SkyDrive
and all. I mean, all the online stuff. And so those are the three we know of. Beyond.
Oh wait, it's Marissa Meyer.
Yeah. There's
Meg Whitman.
Rumor I heard.
Thorsten Hines.
Thorsten Hines. Yeah.
Yeah.
One of the things I've heard is it's oddly enough the CEO of Kia. Hyundai Kia recently stepped down. I mean, they've done a lot of.
They're
as
just
much as people laugh about Kias, they've actually done a lot of really innovative things in terms of making technology and car cheap and improving its brand. Look at improving its brand over the last 10 years.
Well, no, and that's specifically the Optima.
The Optima and all the various Hyundai thing, like, they've come a really long way. You want to talk about a turnaround from a car no one would buy to a car, if you look at it objectively and don't look at the badge, you go, that's a decent car.
I actually like how the Optima I actually like.
Yeah.
The Optima and the Hyundai Genesis. I like both of those cars.
I like the Equus as well. It's very similar to what Samsung and LG did in televisions. Right? It used to be like you would never buy, back when LG was Lucky Gold Star. Yeah? Yeah. It's come a long way. And I think Hyundai, a lot of kind of the Korean cars have done a similar thing as the Korean televisions and the Korean electronics. If you look at it and go, it's not so bad now. I'd actually, if you just ignore the badge and look at the thing, it's come a long way. But no, look,
whereas Samsung still just makes crap.
Yeah, but well-selling crap now. But in terms of a CEO from outside of Microsoft, if there is a candidate, fine. We just don't know who it is.
Don Matrick?
But that, I mean, again,
I'm just naming CEOs at this point.
well, Don Matrick recently left in a huff to take over Zynga and to do exactly nothing.
Him back?
No, I mean, they're going to bring... Anyways, there's other people I would want them to see bring back before Don Matrick.
Elon Musk.
Oh, yeah, I know that one.
Or, yeah, sure, bring in Elon. Yeah, that'll happen. Nope.
Because the world will end.
Right, Iron Man runs Microsoft. I mean,
the world will end.
You give him an unlimited budget and we'll have some amazing things, but no.
And the company may or may not be actually
Best
profitable.
devices and services ever.
There'll be devices and services that automatically transport you to the moon.
Hyperloop.
Yeah.
And is just crazy enough to do it.
So in terms of just crazy enough to do it, Samsung was just crazy enough to leak it this week.
Yeah, so while Alan Mullally has decided
Crazy
to make my
bastards.
predictions difficult this week, Samsung is playing right into my hands. So among their announcements of upcoming devices at CES, they, teased is probably a generous term, more than teased, the Galaxy S5, which may possibly come with an iris scanner. This being not the irises that you smell, but the irises of your eyes,
It's
relating to
disappointing.
my biometrics prediction. So thanks, Samsung. So iris recognition, basically, as you would assume, identifies users based on patterns in the eye. And if Samsung is able to successfully pull it off, it could be a good competitive response to Apple's Touch ID, or it could just be awful.
Okay.
So we'll see about that.
Let it sit. Let her finish.
Give me a minute. So Samsung also, in its S5 related announcements, stated that the Galaxy S5 will be physically very different from the S3 and the S4. That was one of the kind of criticisms of the S4s. It just looks just like the S3. So they're saying that we're going to be seeing something different with the new phone, and that it should be launching sometime in March or April, about a year after the S4. So good deal.
How about that? And 2 years after the S3.
Indeedy.
Yearly cycle.
So in addition to fancy new S5, we should be seeing an updated version of the Samsung G Tool, which is actually called the Galaxy Gear smartwatch.
You know, that thing that nobody wants.
That I think is horrible. As well as a new Galaxy Note for higher end customers, as they put it. And it is important to point out with all of these reports that they are not coming from our very good friends, the nebulous people familiar with the matter, but from a person familiar with the matter who also has a name, Young-hee Lee, who is the executive vice president of marketing for Samsung and probably knows what he's talking about for Samsung's mobile division specifically. So Jimmy, or perhaps we should let Trey rant. Trey, what is it you need to rant about?
Okay, so iris scanning, right? I buy a lot of Apple products, but I also spend a fair amount of time criticizing the Big A. Touch ID is not one of those places where I'm going to criticize them. They took something that I already do to unlock my phone, which is press the home button. And they found a way to make pressing the home button more secure. So they took something I already did and built a new technology into it that actually feels quite magical. Like, I don't throw that around, but like, they actually managed it with that one. Good on you, Apple.
You put that word away.
Yeah, as I've said, it's something that at first I was like, that's kind of gimmicky, who needs that? And now I just I take it for granted, and anytime I use Trey's phone, I'm like, stand there for a while with my thumb on the button and wonder why nothing is happening.
So my question is, how on earth is iris scanning actually going to be easier than that? Because it's going to have to get your eye at such an angle that it can analyze it. And I just imagine it's be like, hold it up. Oh, that's not quite. I don't know.
Presumably, it will be dependent on lighting
conditions.
It's not going to work. No, it's not going to work.
This is just another one of those stupid features for the sake of features. Like, you wave your hand to unlock it because your nails are dirty, or whatever. All this dumb crap they've been doing for the past few years. It's stupid. It's just a Me Too feature that it doesn't even work as well as the thing they're Me Tooing. It's dumb.
So the thing I really enjoyed was the title on the Verge article on this that said, Samsung wants to take the Galaxy S5, quote, back to basics, comma, may include iris scanner. What?
It's full of crap. It's the usual Samsung
Basic
bull.
nonsense.
Yes, hopefully they make it look different because I hate that I walk up to people and go, "Oh, nice S4." Oh, no, actually that's an S3. Ooh, sorry.
Ooh,
I assumed you had something that worked kind of better.
But look, Samsung, I don't care.
They're a marketing behemoth, though. Like, they will sell this thing.
Sure,
They
it'll sell well, and it
they'll
won't
move
be
product, and
it won't be utter crap. But the things they have done to it will not be the things that make it good. Right? You take a good screen, a good processor, and what I'm told is a good operating system, and you should end up with a good phone.
well, see, but it's a good operating system that then Samsung turns around and takes a giant dump on. So
Right, that's the problem. Is they take this thing that's apparently become pretty good. I'll stop just crapping on normal stock Android.
Well, because the Nexus 5 works
Yeah.
But only
in a way that the S3 never did.
You know, our number two device of the year for 2013. So in what might be our devices of the year for 2014 is this week's extended section of Gadget. So this is our CES roundtable. And so we've identified kind of the 4 categories of tech that we think were kind of the biggest news out of CES, and we're going to break them down one at a time. Starting with, what has been one of the biggest topics out of the show in terms of mainstream press and tech press. It is wearable technology. So, Jimmy, what's happening with wearable technology at CES?
Oh, wearable technology. Not surprisingly, wearable tech is one of the hottest categories this year at CES. That being said, the trend can be distilled into 3 main categories. The Watch Plus, aka like a Pebble, the Super Pedometer, and the computer strapped to your wrist. In the first category, we have the Kickstarter darling Pebble. Pebble probably got the most press of, inside and outside of the tech press for their Pebble Steel. Pebble was released a year ago. They claim they have 300,000 devices that they've sold, which is pretty impressive for a little Kickstarter company. The Pebble Steel will cost $250, and it's a much sleeker, more professional-looking watch. Looks less Fisher-Price than the old one. But the important thing is it has the same screen and the same internals as the previous version because they want to make sure that they support, a watch for longer than one generation. In addition to that, they're also rolling out an app store where they've announced ESPN, Pandora, and Mercedes as partners, and you can use it as a remote for Pandora to like songs and scroll through scores on ESPN. Mercedes, it'll pair with your car, and you can see like tire pressures and control all kinds of. It's very German, yes, with the Mercedes connectivity.
But it has this, the beautiful metal wrist strap or a leather band.
It comes with both a metal wrist strap and a leather band. It's cheaper than a Galaxy Gear, and it is actually like probably what you want. So much so that I've actually ordered one. So don't listen to me. I'm obviously taking my own advice. But in the second category of, super pedometers, you have all of the people you'd expect. Fitbits, Basis bands, every other company under the sun, LG. Sony has this core thing that doesn't actually make any sense because they haven't explained it. Other
Razer.
than it's the core. That's
it's not just tracking your fitness.
It just makes it sound like you're going to lose weight when it has a name like that.
It's tracking your life.
It's tracking your enjoyment of life. So
enjoyment of life?
Oh no, it's crazy. I read this interview where it was like it tracks your steps and your activity, but it also tracks like who you talk to and when, and the photos you take, and the songs you listen to, and all. And this is an interview with Japanese guys who didn't sound like a Valley Girl, but it was like tracks your enjoyment of life. It's trying to create an emotional connection, not just tracking your activity. Anyways, keep going.
It's like creepy Google, except you're letting them do it very, very obviously.
There's something very self-centered about wanting a device like that.
Really, you don't say.
And I mean, these devices are really, in most cases, are not anything different from what we've seen. I mean, Razer's Naga or whatever. Or no,
Yeah.
it's
Naga's the mouse.
no Nabu. Sorry,
Nabu. Yeah. Naga is one of their mice.
it Razer's thing looks like a um, Nike Fuel Band. I mean,
But
it's
it
just
has
not-
it has two screens. One with a little notification screen at the top, which they call the public screen, and there's the private screen, which is on the underside of your wrist, where it will actually show some of your text message.
right, and
And that's
it's
great.
still just a Fuel Band.
Yeah, it's still just a feel.
More screens.
Yeah.
It's really just an expansion to that market. But they added weird things like earbuds that'll measure your heart rate.
Yep, LG.
Which
Just
is
for you
actually kind
trying.
of clever.
Yeah. I would-
LG's not the only one that's doing it. There was
I'll buy
another
'em.
company that's doing it too.
If they have decent integration, I'll buy them.
And then, so that's the only interesting thing that came out of that category this year. And in the final category, we have the Intel smartwatch that they showed at their keynote. And according to Intel, this watch will have its own connection and will not require a phone to function. The main feature that they're touting with it is geofencing. And yeah, it's probably vaporware. And
Well, it's an Intel thing, so of course it's vaporware. It's
Right,
just a
but-
reference design for other people to make this thing, and it's
And
really
it-
just a way to sell Quark chips.
and it's like this big, and it's about half an inch thick. Looking at it on
It's
people's
it
wrists,
looks awful.
it looks like a tank strapped to your wrist.
It looked crazy on me. Like the Galaxy G Tool already looks awful on my wrist. I can't imagine what that thing would look like.
This thing would look like a weight strapped to your wrist.
Like I was wearing a phablet on my wrist.
But it's part of Intel's whole like push to show that they're more than just like a chip maker.
Yeah,
that
it's
they
the
know what
Quark.
they're doing with design stuff and whatever. However, the notable absent party from this whole wearable tech discussion, and the one that Trey is avidly awaiting to see what they're going to do, is Apple. Apple's long rumored iWatch, that is. So according to The Information, which is actually apparently an online like magazine,
How'd they get that URL?
yeah, the yet to be announced device from the fruit company has hit a snag in its battery life and screen technology and is therefore delayed, though still expected sometime
Kind
this
of
year.
like the Apple TV.
Right. So once again, we are announcing a delay for a product that doesn't exist.
That has not been announced.
I love rumors.
So Sydney, I tried to hit the high points here. There's obviously more to it than what I said, but of all these devices and categories, which do you think is the best for the average consumer, if any?
Well, I think that the Pebble is really pretty. I saw a picture of it. And this is from me, the person who has said nobody needs a smartwatch. It's the stupidest device ever. Boo to smartwatches. But they actually made it look good, which is really important if you're going to actually try to get people to buy this thing.
Like I said, it doesn't look like a Fisher-Price toy.
Well, and Fitbit's announced a partnership with some fashion designer to do something similar and make their stuff look good.
Yeah, it
Right,
looks,
which is good.
it looks very nice. That being said, I think the category that's going to play the best with the average consumer is your super pedometers, because that's the kind of stuff that I feel like I just feel like that's something that more people are willing to
Well, but
shell out money for.
but right now, honest to God, all of those look awful. So
Well,
they either look
they
Yeah,
all look
but,
the same.
In a lot of cases, the type of person who's going to buy one of those things doesn't necessarily want it to be inconspicuous.
Sure. No, but I get not. I mean, I wear like a full-on watch. Like I get wanting something that looks something to wear on my wrist that is not inconspicuous. I'm not talking about making it look inconspicuous. What I'm talking about is I don't want it to make me look like I'm in Star Trek or Mass Effect, or if I am
But I think-
super sporty.
I think that's what I'm saying. I think you don't want to look super sporty, but I think probably 80% of the people who are buying these devices are like, look, I'm being fit. Here's my fitness device. It's right here on my wrist. Don't I look awesome? Like, I feel like...
You
So I wear
do
my
look
yoga
awesome.
pants
I
to a
feel like-
restaurant.
Exactly. I feel like it may be a negative for you, but I feel like for the majority of people who are after this device, that's
But I
part
think
of what they're looking for.
Well,
But
but the question is that does that actually accomplish what they want? Because they want you to wear this thing at all times. So if you only wear it to the gym, then you're not really accomplishing the goal of this pedometer
think
thing.
Sydney brings up the point that the people who are wearing this device would wear it all the time, even if they weren't at the gym, because they're the same people like wearing their high-priced running shoes everywhere and always try to look like they're about to or have just come from these people.
So all those bastards that are at Whole Foods whenever I drive by.
Yeah, it gets real in the Whole Foods parking lot.
And you see the girls who clearly spent 45 minutes on their hair and makeup, and they're wearing yoga pants and track jackets. That is who I'm talking about.
And the bright pink shoes.
Yep, that's
and
what the
pearls.
bright pink shoes are for.
And they have like the iPod strapped to their
if you're
arm.
going to the gym, you don't need to spend 45 minutes on your hair.
But I think
You missed the point.
but I think there are wider markets that would want wearable tech if it didn't look like that.
Oh yeah, I don't disagree.
Oh, by the way,
that.
I also totally left off the Google Glass category because nobody wants that.
Yeah, no, I mean, look, no one wants that, and there wasn't a whole lot of stuff around that either. I mean, Oculus was there, and there were a few other like wearable face.
Oculus isn't really wearable though.
Right.
I don't count that.
Yeah,
more of the like. I think LG had something, and there's more of those same kind of Google Glass.
But I think it's somewhat of a false distinction to say the difference between a smartwatch and a super pedometer, because those two categories are rapidly crashing into each other, right?
Well, I put it all on there, but
yeah. So I mean, like Pebble has Fitbit integration, and Nike Fuel Band, and some of the Fitbit stuff now function as watches. The Nabu.
Nabu
is also a watch. The Sony thing isn't a watch, but
the Sony thing is odd.
The LG thing is also a watch, and I think also calls the Enterprise based on what it looks like.
Sweet. I want that one.
That thing looks like that thing looks like future past.
Communicator.
That looks like it looks like the Jetsons idea of what the future was going to look like. What is that? Oh, there's a word for that I heard recently. Retrofuturism. There we go. That's totally retrofuturistic. And what I want to get rid of is this idea of retrofuturism. What I loved was like the Mars watch from last year that looked like a freaking watch and then had a little screen.
Yeah, okay, and there's a new one of those this year that has added like vibration. It added some tiny little thing to it, and I think the price dropped a little bit.
I needed it. It was too expensive. You need to get that thing down to the same.
It's like $170.
Oh wow, no, that's great for what
I think that's right. Well, but they made the screen a lot smaller. That's okay. What they ended up doing was it's a much smaller screen.
Okay. Well,
and there was another article I read about like Citizen, for example, big time watchmaker that put in this really expensive, $800 watch, added this little feature where it'll Bluetooth with your phone, and it'll vibrate when you get a notification on your phone.
But see, that's just not quite enough. Like,
but I think that's interesting because that's an actual watchmaker that has added some sort of connectivity with your phone. And
what I want is I want Fossil to make a Pebble, and then I'd be happy. Fossil and Swatch and whatever, Rolex, whoever. Get watchmakers to integrate with Pebble, because I don't want that much. I don't want the computer on my wrist. Fundamentally, I don't want that.
Right.
But I want more than a gussied up pedometer that offers you junk data. Because if you're going to be a workout watch, you need heart rate monitoring, and there are a few that do that. Basis Band. There's a couple others that got announced now that'll do the against your skin thing. Okay.
There's another sport one that was announced.
So that's what you want if you're talking specifically workout. If you're talking about the thing I'm going to wear all the time, I'm still not going to wear it to sleep. I don't care. But you need the design elements, and you need not that much information shown. I think Pebble right now is the thing that's got it right. We said that going into CES, and I'm sad to say that's what we're saying coming out of CES.
Well, there are a lot of Pebble lookalikes, too, of the original Pebble, and they're just not as good.
Yeah, they're just not as good. But speaking of just basically not as good, we come to gaming. There are only really two things we're talking about here, but I'm going to add a third because only I care.
Damn it, Trey.
So the big thing was there was a big rollout of Steam machines.
The next big thing.
There was a rollout of Steam machines, okay? So Valve held a press conference at CES where they showed off their hardware from 13 partners, including many of the usual suspects in boutique gaming hardware, like Alienware and CyberPower and Origin, and our good friends over at Falcon Northwest.
We love you, Falcon Northwest.
The prices on these Linux-based Steam gaming boxes range from like $500, which almost makes sense, to $2,000, depending on specs as ever, which makes no sense.
$6,000.
Or one that was $6,000.
That was from Origin, I believe.
On the low end, the models were comparable in price and specs to the consoles. In terms of the power you were getting for the price, they match up with the $500 gaming consoles, which, hey, that makes a hell of a lot of sense. Considering Microsoft probably cost them about $500 to make that thing. The big question remains there are twofold. One, will there be games? I get that they have games, but...
Yes, there are games currently, not will there be games.
But what I mean is, are the big third-party, non-Valve titles, the AAA titles, going to be coming to SteamOS? That's not a given. And to me, you have to be able to play Battlefield, one of the biggest online, except when it crashes, one of the biggest online games,
other than that,
online shooters out there. You need to be playing at least Activision's or whoever's Battlefield equivalents, because Battlefield will be on Origin. But you need to be able to play these big AAA titles for it to justify the price tag. Okay? I'm not saying that the only thing out there is AAA titles. There are plenty of indie things that are absolutely amazing. Our number 2 game of the year from 2013 was an indie game that came out exclusively on Steam. Okay? So I get that. But I think if I'm going to spend $500 to $5,000 on a box, it needs to do more than indie titles. And it's not going to get anything from EA because EA is not on Steam anymore.
Well, and you and I had this conversation where they're showing off as one of the Steam. This was on a CNET rundown of Steam machines. They showed the Falcon Northwest Tiki, which has been out for like 18 months.
Which is just a media PC with a new operating system flashed onto it.
This really awesome like marble base thing.
It's cool.
Like
it's a great.
That doesn't make any damn sense, but sure, why not?
Sure, why the hell not? Okay, my other big question for that is the controller. Okay, so I've been following some coverage of the first 300 people who got this Steam machines as beta. And the controller works for some things and doesn't work for other things. And so that controller is trying to take what would require a mouse and keyboard and move it to the 10-foot living room experience. And right now, it sounds like it's not quite there. So games and controller are my questions hanging over Steam machines.
Yeah, and my understanding is that the right stick on the controller works really well, and the left stick works really poorly.
The left touchpad. They're neither of them are sticks.
Well, okay, yes, fair. Not sticks, but that the translation of the directional pad to the touchpad on the left just doesn't make any sense.
So,
whereas the mouse equivalent makes a lot of sense.
Looking at this hardware, they haven't totally blown it, especially the ones that are like $500, which means maybe in like a year.
And the Alienware actually looks good.
The Alienware looks good. The Tiki's a great computer. It's just too expensive for what this is.
It's like $2,000.
Yeah, okay. It's worth what it is. But if I'm spending $200,000, if I'm spending that much money on a thing, I need to be able to do more than game.
You need to put Windows on it.
Well, that's my other issue with this, right? Even my Xbox One does more than just game. And so if I'm spending $500, fine.
But so does Steam.
No. But I can follow you in so far. If I'm spending $500 for a thing in my living room, I does some media stuff and games. Fine. But if I'm spending $2,000, it better be able to run like Adobe and all the Adobe suite and possibly blend things. Okay?
Will it blend?
It needs to be my backup recording computer. For that much money, it needs to be able to do more. And right now,
quiche.
That SteamOS they haven't quite sold me. So something that has totally sold me is Sony's big announcement, which is the other actual important item. Sony announced and previewed their implementation of their Gaikai streaming technology that they bought a while ago. So like OnLive, this uses servers in the cloud to do the heavy lifting of rendering the games, and then just beams down the video to pretty much any device. The service that Sony is using is called Sony Now, and will launch in the summer. The gaming aspect of Sony Now is it will let you stream games from Sony's back catalog, focusing for the time being on PS3 titles, though you'll get earlier stuff later. Stream it down to PS3s and PS4s, and eventually Vitas and Bravia televisions. So you could be playing, what they demoed is you could be playing The Last of Us on a Vita over the internet. Okay? So people who use it in the show floor it actually seems to work. But it will require a 5 megabyte down connection in order to function appropriately. So DSL users need not apply.
You're totally screwed. You're just not going to get there.
Yeah. There's also talk of a Netflix-like model for this, where you'd be able to rent just the right to stream everything that's there for a certain fee a month. No numbers were discussed. But that Netflix-like model really
I'm
intrigues
sure it'd be like
me.
a GameFly kind of price.
$10 a month, $8 a month, whatever.
I'd
pay it. I mean,
$10 a month? Done.
$10 a month, and then on my Vita, I could play all the Uncharted games, The Last of Us, Beyond Two Souls, and Ni no Kuni, all these games I want to play. This would save me money very rapidly.
And on the PS4, I can play games?
Yeah. Yeah, this is going to launch this summer, so you'll have the infamous Second Son by then, and theoretically Watch Dogs, but we'll see.
No, don't you make promises. I've been burned once already.
Yeah, no, me too. I canceled my PS4 over that. It also talks about you'd be able to just rent individual games. If you didn't want, there's just one game you're really dying to play, you didn't want to pay the subscription, fine, just rent an individual game. I think that sounds truly awesome. But speaking of a Netflix-like model, this is my really important news. So Razer, everyone's favorite vaporware person,
vaporware that they actually make.
They made their usual slightly vaporware-looking hardware. This one called Project Christine. They all seem to be named after women.
Ex-girlfriends?
I don't know. This is a fully modular gaming PC that looks like the future and is supposed to simplify the upgrade process by making a computer fit together more like Legos and less like something you bought in a box and were supposed to solder together.
Fantastic.
Apparently, there might even be a subscription-based model for this new hardware. Look, I'm not going to give a lot of airtime for Project Christine, but if you grew up building PCs like I did, look it up. It's really awesome.
And it looks kind of awesome.
It looks kind of awesome. But anyways, given all of this, what of these stories do you think will actually have a lasting impact on the market? Obviously not Project Christine.
I still don't see a good bright future for Steam boxes. I don't think they're priced competitively for what they are.
No,
but
I don't think they are either.
Sony now.
Sony
Sony
now.
Yeah, I agree.
I mean, I have a hard time.
Also because of the, they talked about some TV tuner kind of streaming built in as part of that, which solves my cord cutter problem.
Right. And
in a way that the freaking Simple.tv does not.
So, but the way this would work is so you buy a Bravia television. You buy a DualShock 3 controller, you're playing PS3 games in your Bravia television over the internet.
And they did say it will require a DualShock controller.
Yeah, or except for the Vita. The Vita will not require a DualShock controller.
Right, but for the TV, it will require a DualShock controller.
But also
you can't use an Xbox 360 controller.
Right. Well, I mean, that's fine. And that doesn't faze me. Also, Xbox 360 doesn't use Bluetooth, so it's unlikely that you'd be able to sync an Xbox 360 controller to anything that isn't,
No, you'd have to hardwire the DualShock 3 and 4 controllers to TV.
Sure.
Through the USB ports that nobody uses in the TVs.
Right, but look, I mean, that's small potatoes. This thing sounds awesome. I'm looking forward to when I can hand them my money and say, yes, I want to play Uncharted, please, on my Vita. That sounds great. I'm sitting at home on my couch, and I want to play the best of the PS3. Great. I can finally play Heavy Rain and Beyond Two Souls and Ni no freaking Kuni.
That would be what would convince me to get a Vita.
Yeah. I mean, this sounds wonderful. So I think, oddly enough, I mean, I'm not sold on Steam boxes. I'm still not sold on Steam boxes. And what I'm hearing about the controllers sells me even less on Steam boxes than I was before.
However, they are making that price point at $500.
They're getting close. I think you've got to beat that 500 for something that with so limited multitasking. I need to see if it's getting all at least the third-party AAA games that come to PC. Fine. Revisit previous argument. I'm at least relatively sold for $500. But if all I'm going to be able to play is Dota, how on earth am I going to play Dota on that thing?
No, exactly.
How on earth am I going to play Dota?
You say that like that's a bad thing.
It's probably
Dota is one of the number one games on Steam.
I think people playing Dota in their living room is just dangerous.
No, I think what's dangerous is if they ever create a way that you can play Dota in your bedroom, because then some people would never leave their room.
Exactly.
Things get weird. But speaking of some things that got weird, what's up with connected home stuff?
So the dream of the connected home, it's been, since like the 50s or whatever, we've been talking about the home of the future. Who doesn't want a refrigerator that, interacts with their washing machine?
Sure, absolutely. Why not?
No, I don't want that.
don't
But in
want
all
that.
seriousness, this is a surprisingly big category this year in the sense that many of the products don't feel like total and complete vaporware. Belkin showed off even more accessories for its Wemo line, of which I have one of the switches that works pretty well. That included a Wi-Fi enabled crock pot.
Yes.
I love that.
Which is fascinating that was what they just of all of the devices, the one that you would set in your kitchen and forget is the one that they put on Wi-Fi.
See, people who say that clearly just are people who don't use crock
are doing it wrong.
People don't.
I don't have a crock pot. I don't
Okay.
own one. Maybe I should own one.
Yes,
Maybe you should have a
because
Wi-Fi enabled.
I'm
a
gonna
Belkin
go
one,
on a mini
actually.
crockpot rant. The number of crockpot recipes that require cooking for 6 to 8 hours is quite numerous. Very frequently, I'm at work, like leave the house at 6 a.m., return to the house at 5 p.m. to 6 p.m. So I'm out of the house for significantly longer than 6 to 8 hours. So if I want to make something in a crockpot, I have, it's cooking for the first 6 hours that I'm out of the house, and then it's spending 6 hours sitting on warm. So and I
Which
realized
is the red zone for food, people.
right, it's and I know crockpots have come a long way and they're safe and it's not actually going to burn my house down, but there's still that little tiny fear of what happens when it's sitting there on warm for a while, what happens to my food. So if I can be at work and instead of turning on my crockpot at 6 in the morning, I can whip out my phone and start my crockpot at noon. Brilliant.
So there's this device that already does this thing. It's a timer.
Yeah, well,
and you
my
can-
crockpot doesn't have one, so
No. It's one of the timer things that you buy from like Home Depot for $5.
Yeah.
And you plug it into the wall, and it has little click things for all the
Yeah,
hours.
use it for when you're going out of town.
Exactly, and then just plug the crock pot into the thing.
No,
so you
because-
only give it power for 6
but
hours.
that's not
Problem
going to
solved.
turn your crockpot on and set it.
Yeah,
No,
You have to set crockpots have multiple settings.
No, you just get a really cheap one and you do this. Like
No,
problem solved.
I think
No.
you're both missing a thing here, though, because so yeah, you could. So what are you gonna do? You're gonna set out, let's say, a milk-based dish at 6 o'clock in the morning, and it's gonna sit there with nothing happening to it for 6 hours
didn't think
until
about
you
that.
start it. It doesn't work.
No,
That's
the
the problem.
answer is that you actually
The
put something
answer
that's
is Rosie the
frozen in
robot.
it and let it sit there for 6 hours and thaw, and then you start the crock pot.
Right, but even
So
then,
it's just cold when it starts.
yeah. But
That's the
that-
actual solution to
Yeah,
this
yeah, but
problem.
that's really specific, and that only works with very specific dishes.
So I really just need the connected smoke detector to make
Look,
sure
I'm
my
not
house
sold
isn't
on
getting
crock pots in
burned down by my
general,
crock pot.
but
No, what you need is Rosie, but that,
Yep.
but
that's-
theoretically, based on what you can do with the current Wemo app, you could set this thing on a timer on your phone, and then decide, okay, well, I want it to start at this time and turn off at this time.
Yeah, but until it can assemble the ingredients right before it puts it in, I'm not sure.
There's this great machine that was in, I think it was Back to the Future at the beginning that made breakfast.
Yeah,
Yep.
that's why
I
I
need
say
to put
Rosie
those.
from the Jetsons.
Mm-hmm.
It's the same issue.
But anyways, so
Sorry
that
about my
thing is
crockpot rant
there,
disruption.
and we have lots of smart thermostats,
Okay,
like
go.
a la Nest, and they're really pushing this kind of whole home integration. There's light bulbs that will do like the Philips Hue thing. There are a bunch more of those sorts of light bulbs where they'll connect together and you can control them off of an app, like the Wemo.
Waymo's got them, but they don't
actually-
change color. They do have motion detection.
Yeah, they have motion detection and they integrate with all the other stuff.
How to freak out the cats.
Yeah. I also never expected to see a silly train product number as a headline on CNET.com. But this year's CES did just that for a Wi-Fi enabled thermostat. It was the train T something, 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 something. And I happened to be at work when I checked CNET and I looked at it. I went, am I on the right site? For one of they're partnering with somebody else for this thing. There's also the reality of the connected home in its kind of full home automation systems from kind of the commercial side of the business coming to the residential through these systems that Lowe's is offering, and Staples and Home Depot. They're actually being offered by another company, but they're being sold as the glue that holds all of these things together.
Right,
Yeah, it's just supposed to talk across platforms.
All know from every sci-fi movie ever that your house is just going to take you hostage.
Except there's more than one of these standards, and they don't actually talk to each other. So enter the problem with closed systems
What they want you to think.
that we've been dealing with for on the commercial business for like 15 years.
But I mean, it's the problem with all of this. It's the problem with connected cars, something we're not talking about, but it was also kind of a big theme. And one of the reasons why they're having the Open Car Alliance, or whatever it's called, is to try and standardize all of these closed systems that theoretically do wonderful things. But if this system only talks to these specific things, and it's a mess, whether we're talking about mobile phones, whether we're talking about wearables, whether we're, this is what makes Bluetooth so bloody genius. Because
Bluetooth
everyone's
and Wi-Fi.
using Bluetooth and Wi-Fi. Everyone's using them. Standards that are actually accepted make a difference. And so what we need the 802.11 whatever of the connected home. We need them.
And so the connected home, it looks like this year it's actually going to be a thing. Like, people might actually start installing these systems. And by that I mean normal people, not multimillionaires that are already installing these systems. But, as always, there's the connected refrigerator, stoves, washing machines, and
toothbrushes.
Those things that people, the Bluetooth toothbrush that will, or the is it Bluetooth or Wi-Fi?
I don't know.
That will
Wi-Fi, I think.
That will tell you how long you brushed, and it's supposed to gamify kids brushing.
Yeah, my toothbrush does that anyways without Wi-Fi.
And they have the toothbrushes for little kids that play music, and you just brush your teeth until the music stops. I feel like that's a lot cheaper and accomplishes the same thing.
Well, but you can't, as mom, you can't check on the kids
to
see if
spend
they're brushing
time with
their
your
teeth.
children. Spend time with your children.
Why spend time with your children when you can use technology to do it for you? I don't understand, Trey.
That's like you missed a great wearable story about Intel.
They're
what is it? They're Franklin. Their little
the Jarvis.
No. Their little SD card size computer running a Quark processor. What they did is they stuck it in a baby monitor that's like
that's right.
Like
I
a onesie. Okay, so it's a onesie that and has a little plastic turtle with a computer in it. And that turtle is tracking respiratory function, temperature, heartbeat, all kinds of stuff, and then sending it to an app for parents to obsessively watch their children via Wi-Fi. It's great. And also, but it's even better. Okay, so there's an audio sensor on the thing, and so it hears the baby's crying. It then talks to the Wi-Fi enabled milk warmer that even before you wake up, the bottle is already warming based on the Wi-Fi enabled milk warmer. So when you wake up, your app and your baby is crying. You wake up, you go get the bottle, it's already warm, and you go straight to the kid. It will speak to a Wi-Fi enabled coffee cup that does something similar.
Ah.
Wi-Fi enabled coffee cup, brilliant. Yeah. I was just not there with you until you got to Wi-Fi enabled coffee cup.
Well, it shows information about your baby. Look.
Don't care. Coffee, yes.
Look, I'd buy that onesie.
Yes, I would.
I would.
And he would wear it too.
I would wear it. I would wear that onesie.
Happen.
It does what I want all the smart stuff to do. It has heart rate function. if I'm hungry and it preheats me a snack when I'm like, hey, it's great. I think it's called the Mimo or something. It's actually supposed to come out. So
yeah, no,
I'd buy that for my child.
Once again, all this connected home stuff. Whereas last year, we had all this connected home stuff, and literally I walked into the Samsung booth and they had this air conditioner that I thought was kind of cool, and I wanted to ask them about it. And the man looked at me and said, "Don't ask me about the air conditioner. I don't know anything about it."
Yeah, because they didn't.
In the Samsung booth.
This is Samsung PR.
It's screw you people.
So speaking of screw you people,
Uh-oh.
By the way, that's Train's thing is the Samsung thing. By the way.
So this televisions were in many ways the biggest headline grabber from the show.
Again.
But I will sum it up with this one anecdote. I'll give you some more details in a minute, but I'm going to sum it up with this one anecdote. Michael Bay, maker of the Transformer movies, was on stage helping introduce Samsung's 105-inch curved 4K television. His teleprompter went out while he was trying to explain the benefits of this thing. He then walked off stage because his teleprompter went out. A article over at Forbes offered the somewhat tongue-in-cheek suggestion that he couldn't come up with the benefits on his own, and so when he wasn't being fed the lines, he walked off. Okay? Regardless of what I think of the utility of these things, 4K and huge displays were the literal big stories from CES, kind of like last year, only more so. LG and Samsung showed off 4K curved displays. That was the big thing, curved. Like
I don't want that
21:9 aspect ratio.
What is the alleged benefit of that?
It's more immersive at a certain distance when you're sitting in a certain place.
Fantastic.
By that he means dead center.
Dead center.
And all of your other visitors can all go
screwed.
to hell.
Because then glare becomes terrible. Okay. So, but not only were they 4K and they were curved and they were 105 inches, but they didn't have to be curved if you didn't want them to. With a button on the remote, they would bend themselves into a curved display or back into a flat panel.
Totally break my TV by just playing with that
Like
button.
100 times. It's just going to break. But they had like a bendable television, which, God, please tell me why I want that.
Samsung did it with the LCD, and they were like, "Really? You did LCD for this? You realize OLED is like designed for this kind of stuff, right?"
Right, but no one's
to which
talking
LG
OLED.
responded, "Yeah, that's what we did."
Yeah, I mean, LG and OLED. I mean, that was the best thing I saw at CES last year was those OLED displays. They were HD. I didn't care. They're the best looking thing there.
Why is OLED not the story of the year this
Because
year?
it's
Why
so
is it,
damn expensive.
Why is it?
Because they doubled down on what's cheap. Guess what? 4K is cheap.
Yeah, the $40,000.
No. I'm gonna get there in a second.
105-inch.
I'll get there in a second.
No. 105-inch Samsung
Yeah.
television.
$70,000. But that's not the actual. That's not actually. There was a $70,000 television. I don't remember which one it was. That's not the point. Okay, Sony had a 4K $40,000 laser projector that sits right up against your wall. That was really cool. But the more interesting
very expensive.
and very expensive. But the more interesting story is this: LG showed off a 50-inch 4K television. Vizio, excuse me. Vizio showed off a 4K 50-inch television with good picture quality for $1,000. And a 70-inch television for $2,500. Now that's expensive, but that's not astronomical. That's close to what I paid for my Vizio back in the day.
That's actually reasonable for
Oh,
a
it's
50
totally
inch,
reasonable for
50-inch, even 1080p TV. That'd be a little high, but it'd be fine.
Right, but this is 4K and it looks decent. Polaroid's got one the same price, but it's crap. This one isn't crap at all. And even the big players like your Sonys and your Samsungs and your LGs are getting close to the $3,000 mark with their 4K displays. So 4K is coming. We're 2 years away from basically anything you're going to buy that's decent being 4K.
Well, that's like 3D was,
Right.
5
but
years ago.
Arguably, I think this is at least less of a gimmick than 3D because I don't have to wear any stupid glasses. And soon, unlike 3D, there's going to be a lot of content to watch to go along with this new format. Sony, Samsung, Netflix, and Amazon all announced streaming content in 4K coming soon.
But
and
Netflix said it would be specifically, at least at first, rolling out on
a specific platform.
Samsung, I think.
I don't remember. Yeah, I think it was
Samsung
Samsung.
signed a
I think
deal with them.
Reed Hastings was on stage with somebody. I think it was Samsung. And as much as I hate them, smart TVs also remained a thing, with Roku now being integrated into several Chinese TV manufacturers, including TCL.
And Hisense.
Hisense, which is just Foxconn. Also, Vizio is no longer including 3D as part of their televisions. So, short question. Do we care about 4K with the prices coming down? Do we care?
No.
It's TV, therefore I don't care.
Okay, so this is... I've been thinking about this
that.
Roku thing. No, I've been thinking about this Roku
It's pretty,
thing.
but it's not where I want to spend my money.
It's soon just going to be the TVs you buy.
Yeah.
And that's fine. If it's just the TV that's available...
Yeah, and that's what's going to be.
And unlike the 8K TV we saw last year,
Which was
where
crap.
the image quality was terrible,
Piss
as long
poor.
as 4K actually makes better image, so iPad Retina display, for example, actually it's a higher resolution, but it also is a very good display.
Yeah.
Whereas you have other Android tablets that are kind of pushing the resolution, but the display is just so.
But see, that's the difference between the Polaroid and the Vizio, right? Polaroid, same price, 50-inch, $1,000 4K TV. It's junk. Vizio, $1,000 4K TV. It's pretty good. Like Vizio is always pretty good.
Yeah. So okay. But I've been thinking about this Roku thing because as the cord cutter in the house, I love my Roku 3. But the way that they should have done this, and they didn't do it, even though Roku's providing the updates, they should have done this with the Roku streaming stick and an MHL port like they did on the 3M streaming projector.
Right.
Where they just provided a Roku streaming stick.
And then you can switch it out when the hardware changes. Because at some point the hardware will change.
And that way you say, here, you get this. And it could even be behind like a panel in the back of the TV. So you don't see it. It just says Roku on the panel. But when you open it, it just has a Roku
MHL
streaming stick, and you can take it out and it has an MHL port. You plug the new one in, and you're done.
Oh, also, one thing I want to totally debunk from CES. When people keep talking about 4K photos, okay? 4K photos are like, what, 8 megapixel? Something like that. It's not that great of a photo. It's not.
What's the 4K resolution?
It's anything that starts with 3800.
Let's see. 4K.
So
Wikipedia says.
But it isn't a standard set, so it's roughly
horizontal resolution order of 4,000 pixels.
But it's not. It never is. It's like 38 or 3700. They're never getting to that 4,000 number.
Ultra HD is 3840 by 2160.
Yes, that's what I've been saying. So they keep talking about, you have all these 4K photo content available. No joke. My camera from 10 years ago did 4K photos. It's so dumb. But the whole thing is so dumb.
Your phone camera does 4K photos.
It's 8 megapixels, am I right?
I'm trying to work this backwards.
Just multiply two numbers.
I don't. Fine. Where's my calculator?
I'll vamp while you do math. Curved TV. Okay, so
Math
curved
is
TV.
hard.
Curved TVs are stupid for two reasons. One, you have to sit now in a very specific place. If you thought
8.3 megapixels.
Thank you. That's what Hey, guess what? I was right on both of those numbers. Sorry. Yeah, I'm a jerk. But curved displays are stupid for two reasons. One, you have to sit in a very specific place, so everyone else is screwed. Two, they now stick out in weird ways, and people are just going to hit their head on them. And they're so
they don't stick out that much. There's not that much of a curve.
Some of them, I don't know. It's hard to tell from the pictures, but some of them look quite curved. And just why? Just why?
Because.
Well, no, because they're desperate. The television makers saw a huge drop off. This is what I learned from that Forbes article. It'll be in the show notes. The television market saw a huge drop off by like 30 million units this year. And what they keep trying to do is recapturing that lightning in a bottle that was the SD to HD transition with trying to make up new features. 3D, curved, UHD, anything. Buy a TV. Anything. Just buy a stupid TV. Buy one every 2 years, not every 6 years. Buy a new TV.
Well, and they have the same problem that kind of desktop PC makers have in that they last for... Trey, how long have you had your television?
Since fall of 2009.
And does it still work fine?
Works great. It's a little small.
We have a television in in the basement of my parents' house that we bought in 2004. It is a DLP television.
Those picture quality's great on DLP.
Oh yeah, the picture quality is amazing. 42-inch DLP because that's all that would fit in the hole.
Sure.
Picture quality is great. We replaced the bulb once, but other than that thing is still chugging.
Yeah. Ideally, I'd like to get
nothing has gone wrong with it.
I am looking at that 50-inch Vizio maybe, but it's just no. The difference isn't going to be big enough right now, unless you're getting a crazy huge television. So this discussion can go on, and will probably be the first episode of Techies Talking Tech tonight. T4. But for something completely different is this week's Last Call. So, comedy writer Allie Reed was on a mission to see what it would take to stop the rampant sexual advances of men that she was receiving on the OkCupid dating site. So, she created a utterly terrible but good-looking online persona. She made the username Aaron Carter Fan.
OMG.
She filled the profile with like racist and selfish and completely inane and idiotic comments, but combined it with a picture of a friend of hers who is like a professional model. And despite the utter lack of personality, she was flooded with messages from men. So apparently, the internet is just as shallow as we all think it is. So, is there any hope left for humanity?
On the internet? No.
On the internet.
That is exactly what I was going to say.
I saw this story and I busted out laughing. This is, she did. There's a great. I pulled the news from abcnews.com, but I'm sure it's other places too, where you'll see the picture of this profile and it's just, she says some of the most inane stuff possible.
I'm really good at convincing people I'm pregnant, LOL.
Yeah.
And on a typical night I am, and she wrote, knocking the cups out of homeless people's hand. This is all in, internet speak. It's so funny to watch them pick it all up. LOL.
And she's gotten feedback from her critics was saying, of course, because she's pretty. I think that says a lot about what's wrong with society. But on that note, it is
the internet.
On that note, it's time to end. Thank you so much for joining us on the kind of the last show in this format. We will be back next week. We're not going anywhere. We're just changing some scheduling around. So if you have any feedback on this format or the new format as we roll it out, podcast at textlesscall.com, facebook.com/textlesscall, pinterest.com/textlesscall, or at textlesscall on the Twitters. However you find us, we'll be seeing you on the interwebs.